So Cerydra was announced a bit ago, and just like every other Harmony in their beta, she's already under a lot of scrutiny. Now, there's quite a lot of people that want her to do different things. Some want her to be a pure support and forsake her sub DPS nature, others want her to play more into that aspect by adding additional damage in her base kit, and many just want better buffs. At the end of the day, everyone's perception is going to be heavily biased so they can get the most out of her. Version 3 is coming out probably in a few days as of this upload, so perhaps there will be some impactful changes. But what I'm here to talk about today is her current kit and buffs as of version 2, because some people are claiming that her buffs are weak. Now, I don't believe that's the case, so that's what I'm here today to prove. Now, while I believe her buffs are fine, she still doesn't perform exceptionally well in her ideal teams, which is an issue. This latter topic will be covered later on in the video by looking at her interaction with Phainon. But for now, let's just go over the buffs. Because buffs are dependent factors and their effectiveness will change based on the carry and support, it's a bit difficult to quantify how impactful the buffs are. As such, I'll just compare her to Robin, who's one of the best supports in the game right now in terms of amping and utility. Looking at the attack buffs first, I'll be using the new Lightcone for both characters, which gives each user 80% attack. Using the same build for both characters, Robin is providing 1280 attack, while Cerydra is giving 1206. Yep, it's very close. While Robin's 200 flat attack is a big difference maker, the fact you can run quadruple attack main stat on Cerydra actually balances this difference out. Now, looking at the rest of the buffs, Robin provides 50 damage bonus, 20 crit damage, and 25% follow-up crit damage. Because a lot of the casts that use Robin don't even use follow-up attacks, I'm actually just going to completely exclude the last bit. Cerydra, on the other hand, provides 20 speed and 72 skill crit damage every so often. Robin easily wins this one, right? No, not quite. This is where I believe a lot of people are completely overlooking when it comes to Cerydra. Her Trace 3's speed cannot be overlooked. Now we can look at the speed in 3 different ways. 1. More speed equals more turns in the long run equals more damage. And it's also just nice in terms of speed tuning. Or 2, we can just convert speed into attack or crit, which it's valued at 33.8% attack or 50 crit damage. But practically speaking, the biggest draw of her speed trace is that it allows your DPS to run attack boots, which is an additional 43.2% attack. If you were already planning to use attack boots for your DPS, well, the first point still stands. Now, using point 2 for fairness sake and just converting the values, and then subtracting the common factor of crit using our conversion values, the difference now is 50 damage bonus with Robin versus 20 attack or 30 crit damage from Cerydra. Of course, Robin's 50 damage bonus is more valuable than Cerydra's 20 effective attack or 30 crit damage. But with this alone, I hope it paints the picture that her buffs are pretty strong. And if you've noticed, I did completely skip over how her peerage state provides 72 crit damage for some of the skills. Before we look at Cerydra holistically, let's now look at their Lightcones, which I believe actually evens the playing field. Robin's Lightcone provides herself 48% attack, while Cerydra gives herself 64% attack, which should in turn make the attack provided by these two nearly identical. While Robin gives a universal 24 damage bonus, Cerydra, however, gives 54% skill damage bonus to one ally. Oh, and every time Cerydra ults, she refunds a skill point. Now, doing a comparison again, it's now 74 damage bonus on Robin's side versus 54 skill damage bonus plus 20% attack or 30 crit. So yes, while Robin at E0S0 is buffing more than Cerydra, at E0S1, I would have to say they are very close in terms of buffing. And again, I'm not even including Cerydra's skill crit damage amp. Now to sum up everything that she provides at E0S1, Cerydra gives around 1200 attack, 20 speed or 43% attack due to attack boots, a double skill and 72 crit damage every so often, 36 crit damage from Sacerdos, and 54 skill damage percent from the Lightcone. She's also SP positive and gives a skill point refund via her Lightcone. I think all of this is great, and from a buffing perspective, Cerydra is not weak. Now, I believe that Cerydra is not the replacement for action advancers such as Bronya or Sunday, but rather acts as the second support who can greatly benefit hyper carries who use their skill. But as I've seen some people mention, why not just use a universal support such as Robin, Rame, or Cypher? And yeah, that's pretty true. At this current point, she's only really good for Phainon and Anaxa. And honestly, I think this is fine, and it would just be another Sparkle situation where not many DPSs can greatly benefit from her, while other DPSs can still use her. However, when watching runs and looking at the results comparing Cerydra to other supports, even with Phainon and Anaxa, her results are still similar to supports who Cerydra should greatly outclass in her own niche, which that is not good. So I definitely understand the frustration in that aspect. It's like if Jiao Cho, who was solely designed for Acheron, suddenly got replaced by a cat and wolf. Oh wait, that did happen. Okay, but in all seriousness, let's not let that happen again. Now, to do that, we need to first understand the problem and why she isn't the most impactful for her best in slot teams, that being Phainon and Anaxa. As I've showed earlier, in terms of buffs, she's actually very strong in that aspect. So what exactly is going on? With Phainon, there is the idea of oversaturation, which we need to look at in two different scenarios. The first is as a solo support for Phainon, which we can just look at his own self buffs. Generally speaking, we can expect 30 crit damage and up to 180% attack in his base kit. There is a damage bonus trace, but I won't include it as a decent amount of people are using him as stainless. But as you can see, that's where the issue pops up, that 180% attack. But it's actually not as bad as it seems. Using simple math, we can see that even though Phainon is indeed very oversaturated in attack, he actually doesn't lose as much as some people may believe. Now, you know who else has the 180% attack in their base kit?
My mom! Get out!
Oh, sorry, I meant Jinlu. So let's look at an earlier case with this issue using Jinlu and Robin. For OG Jinlu, Robin was her best teammate due to the sheer utility and amount of stats that Robin provided, even though she was oversaturated in attack. It's again the same thing for Phainon, where while they are not benefiting as much from the stats, it's the utility that makes Cerydra very valuable. But what if we want the buffs to be valuable? Well, we'll cover that pretty soon. Next, let's talk about the oversaturation in a team setting, using his current best team of an E0S1 Cerydra, Sunday, and Bronya. Looking at the buffs, Sunday provides a lot of crit damage, crit rate, and damage bonus. Bronya gives a lot of damage bonus, crit damage, and attack. Cerydra gives a lot of attack, more attack via attack boots, damage bonus, and crit damage every so often. Looking at this, it's perfect. Each support provides a lot of a particular stat, and then some for others, with Cerydra being no different. However, when using Triple Harmony, all of these stats become very oversaturated. The best sustainless combo in the game generally is that of 2 stat Ampers and 1 unique Amper with Defense Shred, Respen, or Vulnerability, such as Tribi or Cypher. This of course is just talking about raw damage though. So let's look at a damage difference when it comes to being that third support. Looking solely on a damage amp and completely ignoring the utility aspect, we can see that damage-wise, Cerydra, Robin, and Rame are all amping around the same level. However, when looking at the unique ampers, we can see that Tribi, Cypher, and especially Silverwolf is putting in a lot of work. But of course, none of these guys provide Phainon any stacks. But from this, we can learn a lot about what someone like Phainon would want. Now, to quickly summarize Anaxa's situation, while Cerydra is his best in slot support, excluding Sunday and Bronya, the buff provided during the double skill is still pretty mediocre. So while he does get a double skill and an amp, Robin in the same scenario would provide a team-wide action advance, so it kinda just cancels out, causing their performance to be pretty similar. With all that said, what exactly could we buff while still keeping her identity? As mentioned prior, her buffs in reality are top tier, just not in a Phainon team, which of course is an issue. So personally, I do believe the base buffs outside the purge state is fine, but the double skill buff of 72 crit damage is pretty lackluster. As we know, for many DPSs, it will take a while to get this double skill. So playing into this, I think the direction to go is to make this one double skill hit like an absolute truck. And to do this, well, we can just put both the defense and res pen from the Eidolons into the skill's enhanced state. That way, Phainon can now get new stats that are not oversaturated, and it of course being beneficial to people that can still use her. In regards to making her more universal though, for someone like Jinlu or Mighty, they could change the attack to crit or damage bonus and just rework all the conversion stuff. Now, as for changes that I would like to see, I think ally ults should count towards the stack. Though no follow-ups though, because they already have their own niche. Also, I know some people are wanting that additional damage to be moved in her base kit, so she's like another Robin, which I think would be pretty cool, but again, I think she's already a bit too similar to Robin. Personally, I think if they increased her ult multiplier or even added a bounce, that could solve this issue. The main thing right now is that her best teams are Anaxa and Phainon, which currently do not use team-wide supports and focus on hyper carry. As such, when using Cerydra in those teams, her damage is fairly lackluster. For example, Hyacinth in an Aglaia team would do pretty awful damage, but you put her with Castris, Tribi, and Silverwolf, and then boom, she's starting to do really dummy damage. So with these changes, I think it'd keep the core components of her kit while making her better for her intended teammates. But yeah, that's the whole video. I just really wanted to go over this because I was seeing people call her buffs bad, which as I've shown, it's just not true. A character having allies not benefiting too much from her buffs is not the same as having bad buffs. Of course, this is an issue in itself, but I just wanted to set the story straight. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on her current kit or just stuff you'd like to see in version 3 because that's coming out pretty soon. I likely will cover version 3 if there are any impactful changes, but if there aren't, then I guess I won't. I do have a deep dive video covering a different topic which I was originally working on until I got sidetracked by this one, but hopefully that'll come out a bit later. But besides that, I just want to say I hope you guys have fun with the Fate collab, as I, however, will be chilling with Serene at Aedes Elysiae. Thanks for watching, and let's kick the shit out of Lygus when it comes out. Peace.